This episode is continued exclusively on patreon.com/consensusunreality. Sign up now for tons of exclusive episodes, full archive, written content, Discord server, and more. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening.
Okay, we're back. Welcome to another edition of Consensus Unreality. We are
Isn't this the
joined.
back end of an episode that already started?
Yeah, but this is going to be the public portion, Ben.
Shoot.
Oh my God, torpedoing the intro. That's all right. I'm going to leave
start
it.
over.
We don't stand a chance in the ads market anyway. It's all good.
Yeah.
This is a sophomore guest, a recurring guest now. Second time on the show. 4 years later, we're talking to Evana Roman, psychic medium, among other things. And we're very happy to be joined again. How are you?
I'm doing so good. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So we've got a very open-ended conversation that we've kind of been having behind the record button a little bit. And I think we're going to start with something that we were just kind of randomly chatting about. And Ben and I happen to be chatting a little bit about on the Patreon pre-episode as well. Kind of talking about hauntings in terms of objects. And specifically, we were talking about some haunted dolls that I had seen and photographed at a nice little paranormal museum in the Bible Belt, strangely enough, Littleton, North Carolina, with a great display of haunted dolls and similar objects. What are your thoughts on this? I know that's kind of like about as open-ended as you can get, but what kind of like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you consider that portion of the paranormal field? I know it's kind of been this like big influence on horror culture as well.
Yeah, I feel like there's this like split in the psychic community of people that believe in hauntings and then people that don't know. And I'm definitely like in the don't know. But I remember, I asked you I'm just curious if you felt anything, just kind of like scoping out, when you're in a concentrated place like that with the intention of displaying these haunted objects. And primarily I feel like there's like a negative connotation with haunted or the word haunted. So as a medium, it's, after been doing this work and doing readings, it's so hard for me to connect the two because of my belief system. And so I always challenge myself to remain flexible in my beliefs, because containing it isn't great for my work, but I definitely, you have to have a control, right? It's like in any experiment that we're doing, which that's kind of what I do. It's like experimenting. It's new every time. We have to have a control. So my beliefs are kind of like a control for me. And with the topic of hauntings, I have to land on, it's kind of an impossibility if we want to agree that consciousness is by location or like, beyond the physical. So, I'll start there.
Yeah. And to contextualize a little bit, your work is really centered around, as you write in your own words, connecting people with their own higher levels of consciousness, and also the consciousness of loved ones. So your work seems to be centered in a positive place. And it's interesting to consider what that means if say a doll is haunted. Is it possible for that doll to be haunted in a positive way? Like, can it contain like
Yeah.
the happy memories of people and place, like concentrated
I
into
feel
that
like it can,
object?
right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's always psychically charged objects that aren't haunted. Like it's just the word maybe that gives it the bad light. Like you can have like at least your resonance of I don't know. It's hard. The language is iffy here, but I have objects that very much remind me of people who are no longer alive that
Mm.
seem to somehow contain like a link to them, if not part of them, then like a directional force toward them, right?
Mm.
And I think that it's not that these objects contain the consciousness of your loved one. It's
Mm.
that they inspire their presence or they
Yeah.
inspire them close to you because of your thought. And it's like, that's all that can connect. I mean, that's what connects us, like consciousness to consciousness. It's just a thought away. And I guess like with the haunted dolls, I'm just so curious. I'm interested in it, and I want to explore other people's beliefs just so that I don't become so rigid in my own. But in terms of, yeah, like a doll or like any object that's trapping or containing consciousness, I just can't believe because I can feel how our spirit or our consciousness exists outside of the body, which is a physical thing.
Mm.
Um, and and certainly like objects all have psychic energy, like everything is energy. So yeah, of course, like we can tune into an object or tune into a place or a location and feel any type of psychic energy that's there. Whatever the concentration is. And it's like, yeah, why you walk into a church or a chapel and you feel just like that, like peace or sense of calm, typically. Or like anxiety if you go to the hospital, or
Mm.
whatever your association is with it. Um, but yeah, I feel like definitely objects can have psychic energy, but like psychic means um, maybe a type of energy that doesn't necessarily have the intelligence of a spirit, a spiritual being, or your consciousness.
Mm.
It's more like
Mm.
a
Yeah.
thing, like an emotion, or that's expressed on the physical plane.
Yeah. So when you
Yeah.
look at say a haunted doll or, any kind of haunted object, really, we don't need to focus on the haunted doll, although,
You seem
but
to
we
be though.
could. I'm really super focused on it. No, I mean, it's interesting because, of course, there's the uncanny element that is, not even paranormal. It's just like the lifeless but humanized object. And when we look at that, the automata or something like that, I'm kind of thinking of this book, Strange Frequencies, that came out recently that had a fascinating chapter on automata and early robots and things like that, or very realistic dolls and all that. But yeah, I mean, like even the Dybbuk box is something that fascinates the paranormal nexus at this point, and it's kind of like this strange reflexive thing where it says that it contains something, but it's actually pushing you to project into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Because it's exactly that. I think when we're triggered or have a sense of fear with like an object and then we associate it with like some kind of spiritual thing, it's really just like whatever we are associating. Maybe, okay, like a something in our psyche is triggered by something that's disturbing or unknown or just feels off. Like we're picking up on something that feels off around the object, like, or we're maybe alarmed by something. And I think that just comes from like being human. And then we jump there, and then our associations are all like from cultural media, like, oh, this movie that I saw that
Mm.
has this haunted doll in it, or like, yeah, like this secret box that is passed down. It's just like all kind of in the subconscious, like being triggered. Um, so it can even like this like reminds me of before my understanding of being a medium when I was a kid. So I would always wish on every single birthday cake that every candle I'd blow out, I'd wish that there was no such thing as sleep. And I would do that because, and that's like the weirdest thing for a kid ever. Like, but it was because when, I was alone and it was dark, I would sleep with all the lights on. Like, I would have like this whole ritual. I couldn't sleep with my back to the door because when everything was quiet and still, I could start to become aware of a presence of energy around me. And that made me really scared because I'm just alarmed by things being in my space or, people or, something that I can't recognize. And didn't really have an understanding for what that was until like literally now in my adult life. But I think that's kind of what happens is, yeah, you're just picking up on a shift in the atmosphere, a shift of something around you. And then depending on your mental state, which like, my mental state was probably not like, it was just like kind of tumultuous in my home life. So I think that would make sense where I jumped to, being afraid.
Mm.
Uh,
I have a couple questions there that it kind of piqued my curiosity in terms of like things like poltergeist and stuff. But I'm curious, has anybody ever asked you for advice? And not that you have to get into specifics, of course, but has anybody ever like asked for your consulting on, maybe something that was more of like a negative type haunting or something? Has anybody ever like came to you with that sort of thing?
no, never, honestly. And I think it's just because it's not my intention.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
don't put it out. And I think that any, evidential medium will not do that work. I mean, what you're really doing is cleansing the energy, like the psychic energy in a home.
Mm.
Uh, because like consciousness is boundless. And also, I feel that there is benevolence, like God is benevolent and loving, like we all are, So from my experience doing readings, it's like they're coming to me, like they
Yeah.
don't need my help. It's like God doesn't need your help, you know? So, it's kind of like, yeah, I just not the space. I think that there is room for, um, cultural interpretation of that. Like, absolutely. And I think that's important. It's just like everyone's perspective is important in this life. That's what makes things beautiful. And I would never discount that. But it's ultimately, yeah, it's like I'm just part of that wheel.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever experienced any kind of like poltergeist thing or anything like that? I'm just like I'm moving from a point of haunted stuff, but I think it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting to subtract the elements of that, especially culturally. With it's summertime and gets you thinking so
Yeah.
much about horror movies and how that culturally imprints.
So honestly, yes, but I wouldn't call it like poltergeist because I feel like that has like a negative connotation or like
Mm.
a connotation that indicates that there's malicious intent behind moving objects. So, um, yeah, I have experienced like m moving objects or like disembodied voices or being tapped or hearing bells ringing, different things like that.
That's weird. Huh. I've had, yeah, I've had that happen.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
unpleasant actually, like scary.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's like that. It's hard to imagine a scenario where it's not scary, like
Sure.
just like not anticipating. It would be like weird if any stranger walked into your house and just started ringing a bell.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
yeah.
Um, yeah, disembodied voices are interesting too. What do you think, like what is your sort of understanding of that phenomenon? 'Cause we talked about it like a couple years ago now on another episode. We talked about like this book about the phenomenon of disembodied voices as like a aspect of the overall paranormal thing. What, but it's such a peculiar one. What do you think it is?
Well, I feel like there's a few like the function of clairaudience or clairaudience is like to communicate psychically. So that might happen in a reading where I hear something and then that's delivered as a message.
Yeah,
Um, and then in terms of just hearing things, it could be like a psychic imprint, or somebody's just trying to get your attention. Like maybe a loved one is trying to get your attention. Um, so that's kind of my take on it. What do you guys think?
I don't. Well, sometimes it could be, psychosis, but even
Yeah, for sure. And it can also be that.
Yeah.
even when it is psychosis, I don't know. Like I think that, and maybe it's kind of a controversial or not great thing to say, but I think that these things bleed into each other more than maybe people want to admit. That there isn't a very clean line between psychotic experiences and paranormal ones.
Mm.
And I think that's why evidence is so important. And like for me, it's the only thing that can be like a propulsion of continuing this work is
Yeah,
that's what distinguishes, you know, psychosis from psychic is evidence. So,
sure.
the only way that we can do that is through validation with other people. And like things coming through that there's no way that, the psychic could know, which can get really hard,
Mm.
especially in this day and age. But like, I do have examples of stuff that can come through. But uh, yeah, the difference is evidence. So you can't just be doing this work like alone in your room
Yeah,
without validation,
Mm.
because that could be get really complicated.
because
Um,
there's nothing telling you it's right that it's not just random data, I guess. Do you
yeah,
find that like when you have a reading like validated very quickly, do you find that it invigorates like further? That's like I guess I can't explain it that well. If you're doing a reading and you realize while it's happening that that's true from the person you're doing it for, does that increase the capacity?
I think, well, it should all be true.
Yeah.
If there's ever at least like I give like myself 90%, and the 10% is like I'm interpreting something incorrectly, or I'm letting my mental
Mm,
mind get in, or I'm withholding information about what I'm giving the person. So,
yeah.
yeah, everything that comes through in a reading should be just 100% true.
Mm.
Um, but I
Huh.
think that like the energy does build if your client or your sitter is really open and to accepting the information. It doesn't change the mechanism of the reading if the client is like a stone wall, because it will work the same way. Um, and that's kind of like my job is just to deliver the information no matter what, because that's just somebody's defensiveness. That's just,
Huh.
um, either a pain point or something that like is just like a wall that you have to get over. So I guess that's what I would say to that.
Interesting.
Yeah, your readings should be like evidential
Mm. Yeah.
ways. Otherwise, how else will you know that you're not alone?
Mm.
I don't think I don't think you would. Yeah. Huh. I guess, yeah, I'm so when you're doing a reading for someone are usually like, is it real time? Like you're with them?
100, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like I typically do them over Zoom. Um, yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. Huh.
This conversation conjures for me that analogy that you hear a lot in paranormal communities or the kind of podcasts that we do. And maybe we mentioned this on the first episode 4 years ago, but I obviously can't remember now. But yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what you think the relevance of it is in that people say that consciousness is kind of like radio waves, and that our brain acts as the literal channel or device that is kind of channeling that, and so under that umbrella, things like disembodied voices could be things that are kind of seeping through the channel that maybe we're not focused on, but somebody like you has learned through practice to hone in on a very specific channel or energy that you're receiving.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like a fountain, and the information is like the water. And yeah, your brain is like the fountain. I definitely feel like our brain is just like the mechanism for consciousness to be filtered through.
Right.
Uh,
So how do
and yeah,
you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to piggyback that, I'm just really curious kind of like, how do you filter noise during a reading, and what's kind of the process to, target maybe is the best word, I guess.
so yeah, I'll start by saying that, yeah, this is something that anybody could develop to do. Like since I believe we're all like connected on this level, like energetic beings, and I believe we're all like a part of God. We are God. So your divinity or whatever, like the spirit in you has this like um possibility to like connect into all things. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every single person should go and do that. Just like, I'm not like a baseball player. It's kind of like we all have vocations in life that I think we decide to do. But true, for sure, it's like whatever you're interested by is like what you should be compelled to do. So, yeah, we all have this capability, but I did hone in on it, and like it's something that has been kind of a string throughout my entire life. So, seeing auras, and then also feeling presence, and then over time, just different experiences that have led me to develop as a medium. But it is a development process. It's like you don't just kind of like, I think like there's a common misconception where there is like a huge amount of time that you do spend like honing. It's a skill. So honing this skill, honing this ability, putting it into practice, getting it validated, like working with mentors. And so the process did look like that. It's like learning how to meditate, and then like learning how to sense a presence, and knowing what state to be in to begin a reading. For me, it looks different for everyone. But like for me to get into that state is typically just like meditation. So I usually just meditate before a reading, and like then I just say like, please just come through in this reading. Like I just am like, please God, like I'm sitting here, like what your loved ones, just please like use this time, like don't waste this. Like and it also, yeah, it kind of feels like jumping off a cliff like every time, because I just don't know what to expect and who is kind of come through. And so I just try to get out of the way as much as possible, because it's like you have to put the other person before yourself, and just like the part of you that has mercy. Like that part, mercy is just like the most important aspect, I think, of being a medium, because it's really like you see the pain, or you can like go into the softest part, and that's your connection point. And then from there, you can like allow whatever needs to happen in that moment come through. Or at least that's where I like try to lead. And, I feel like I'm good at it because I understand loneliness.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's kind of got me curious. Have you ever been compelled by a place or thing to sort of like open up and try and channel that? Say something like a random occurrence of a poltergeist or a disembodied voice. Has that ever compelled you on the spot to sort of meditate and open up?
Kind of the reverse. Like
Hmm.
it's really in relaxed states that I become aware. So when I'm in, that's really all it is. It's like me becoming relaxed so that I'm aware. So like I'm more aware of everything that's going on around me. And like it's a sensory thing. So typically if I'm getting like a massage, like honestly, yeah, that happens. I got a massage and I had information coming through for the massage. And then I always ask like, because it's kind of unethical to give a reading for someone that's not expecting it. So I always like ask for a sign before I deliver a reading or just like kind of, softly like walk the path. And sometimes I'll just be like, all right, have them say this word or like, something that can happen in the moment. And then I'll deliver the information. I'll be like, okay, just so you know, like, um, so that will happen when I'm like in a relaxed, super relaxed state, and or sometimes like, yeah, if like it's rare, it's not every day, but like I'll have an experience where I like can feel somebody trying to come through. Um, so
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really
that'll happen.
interesting. Wonder if I'd be like, can you just like wait till the end of this massage? I'm really just like relaxing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And no way am I like a victim of it either, because it's like there's some part of me subconsciously that was open, in some way to receiving information.
Hmm. That's fascinating.
What have you ever had any sort of, or does this sort of practice ever have anything to do with time? Do you ever have any weird effects of time or precognition or things coming across from the future, I guess, if that's what you'd call it.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think that, well, that happened with my daughter for sure. Like I kept hearing like before I was pregnant or like a thought of conception, I kept hearing like Christmas music all the time in my head. And I was like, what is this about? Like I kept hearing that like song, O Come Emmanuel. And it was really weird. Like I was just like, okay. And then um when I got pregnant, her due date was Christmas.
Wow.
Huh.
So, yeah, so I feel like that was definitely like sort of like a little, but the thing is, I kind of feel like it was her giving me that information, so I won't even give myself credit for that.
Mm. Yeah, that's an
Huh.
interesting bit of precognition. It seems that or something. I'm not sure exactly how to contextualize that, but that's
Yeah.
fascinating. Dang.
Um, what do you think that says about like time or yeah, what do you feel about how time factors into it? 'Cause, I mean, I guess if you're often getting this information from people who aren't really in bodies right now, but who were and who had relationships with other people in bodies at one time, like so it seems like time plays a large role in this. Like you're almost like weaving things together somehow.
Listen, I like try to read books on quantum physics and it just like goes right over my head. Like I'm an
Uh,
idiot. Like I truly, I don't like I hope maybe one day I can like understand some texts that I try to read, but and maybe like one day my capability of understanding concepts will grow.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I don't mean like a scientific understanding of time. I mean like just your basic like what is your gut feeling about what that is?
oh yeah. Yeah, it feels like time is like power that gives our life meaning and purpose, otherwise, um, we wouldn't be compelled to race towards our desires. So, in that sense, I think it's the biggest power of humankind is time.
Hmm.
Yeah. You know that incredible string band song called Time?
No.
Which
Uh,
what album
yeah.
is that on?
It's on You,
Uh,
which is like my secret favorite.
yeah,
Um,
Check it out.
that's their like their Scientology concept album, secretly Scientology,
nice.
but it's really subtle and beautiful about metaphysics. That your answer reminded me of that somehow. Uh,
I had a
I
funny
wasn't thinking, yeah.
on my little road trip recently. I had a funny bit of a short precognitive event with L. Ron Hubbard, where I was reading a little bit from Kenneth Grant's "Outside the Circles of Time." It's this book it's pretty. I don't. We've talked about it at length on the show, but it's got like a spider on the cover in this sort of magical web. And then, as I was reading from it, like a giant wolf spider was on my friend's back, which was funny. But I was reading a part about L. Ron Hubbard, and then the next day I found this L. Ron Hubbard book with like the classic hilarious image of him with like these 50s shades on, and it was really funny. I don't know how magical that was, but it was a nice synchronicity,
Yeah.
especially for him, such a strange character.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think like, yeah, wherever you look, there's more.
Yeah, you start turning over stones. There's just tunnels underneath or something.
Mhm.
So have you ever heard of like this concept of the stone tape theory? It's this guy,
Yeah. But can you,
Lethbridge, Charles Lethbridge, I think was his name.
I have, but can you like give a quick,
I think he was in archaeology. Ben, does that sound right? He was like kind of an
He
archaeologist
was
or
something like that. He wrote a ton of books, and some of them were like these sort of fringe concepts, like the sons of gods coming down to intermingle with the women of Earth. Like he thought of almost in like an ancient aliens
but
sort of way, or
initially he
like
was like it was a kind of like scientism of the occult,
but
almost like
totally, yeah.
spiritualism, right? Yeah. Um,
But yeah, the stone tape thing is also a scientific approach to the paranormal. Yeah.
or essentially hauntings. It's kind of that like this idea that places of intense trauma or I don't know, intense historical energy or the kind of like intense emotional states that you're talking about. It watermarks a sort of resonance onto the place that could be the reason, it's sort of acts as an explanation for the reason why people might see ghostly soldiers at Civil War battles or something like that, because these areas of intense strife or something were imprinted with some kind of metaphysical record that he believed could be tapped or tapped by, say, mediumship and hopefully scientifically captured at one day or at one point.
It kind of
yeah.
takes the intentionality out of it, right? Like it makes them not agents anymore. Like so it's not ghosts like walking around
Yeah.
for a reason. It's like their recordings.
Yes. Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think like, yeah, of course, like of course we can pick up on the energy of a place. Like it's the same way that it's the reason we make movies or write poems or paint paintings and that we look at paintings, it's like to be moved, you know? And I think that if you're moved in a place like and picking up on that, that makes total sense. The thing is, it's like when you're watching a movie, you can still feel everything like so profoundly and be changed and like hurt or, you know, happy from the movie, but that doesn't mean the actors are trapped inside the movie, you know? They're not just standing there like performing each time. It's like a record of that. It's a record of that that energy that was exchanged. So in that way, um, that's definitely real.
Yeah, because it kind of makes you wonder, you know, if these are, um, you know, entities with free will. Why would they relive an event of such horror, man-made horror, like, you know, the Civil War or something like that? Like, why are we seeing that and these people not in their happiest of places or something? But
Totally. Yeah, I think that that's a good explanation. And that doesn't mean that there can't be like apparitions that have consciousness or something. I'm sure that that can exist.
yeah,
But, but definitely feel, yeah, I agree that we have free will and our consciousness isn't bound to the physical world or like the physical body.
My next question was if we have free will.
we got the heavy hitters.
That has to be my control too. That's kind of the things that I say, you know, in my
Yeah,
readings
yeah.
is I get free will. So when I describe doing a psychic reading, I kind of explain it like our paths are based on our energetic pattern. And so it's almost like when you plug in your energetic coordinates to like a GPS. And you know how Google Maps will just like try to route you the quickest way. And like that's your pattern, you know, but that doesn't mean you, while you're following the map, can't take a left and change the route and change your experience. Or maybe you end up paying a toll and getting there faster. But it's like, so I do believe in that sense we do have free will, but we're also subject to our energetic pattern. And that can certainly be changed, but it takes like conscious awareness.
What's the destination?
I think that like maybe that's preconceived, like a little, like I do think that like our lifetimes are like a little bit decided, like we kind of decide what we're gonna do a little bit. And then there's just like this whole map to explore, but that's just like my individual thought or like opinion, you know.
Yeah,
I feel like
there's
last time I asked you what you think happens after death.
Yeah, I don't know, but and I think it's like don't trust anyone that says they know, uh,
Yeah.
because even in near-death experiences, you know, people that die, like clinically die and then come back can report their experiences. But I believe that our, you know, our experience is going to be interpreted through our subconscious.
Yeah.
So whatever we experienced like on the other side is going to be filtered through that brain again. So like anything that we're recounting, we're still going to have all that matter of like lived experience like in the human world. So I think that like you know, obviously there's like common experiences that have been reported in near death experience that um seem like, you know, undeniable based on the pattern of like how many people experience this, but then the quality of the experience might change, like the archetypal figures or like the perception, the interpretation, like everyone interprets a painting slightly differently, you know? So
Yeah.
that's like as humans, like just subject to always experience our bias. Um, so that's why it's like so important to go into readings like completely outside of your as much as possible like outside of your mental mind and expectation. um
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Kind of reminds me, maybe a year later after first talking to you, Ben and I were doing these sort of randomized, kind of like, I guess, like chaos magic activities with like randonautica and location generation, but also using a Ouija board. And I enjoyed it, although it kind of like got us into some treacherous territory because it almost felt like creating this unnatural divergence from your like path, like calls to existence these like threshold entities or something. I don't like whatever it is that's kind of like pushing you back. I can recall a couple like very high intense situations when following these like randomly generated locations and stuff that it almost felt like I was nearing like death situations and stuff because I was getting off of some natural path. And that could be, like my own head creating that scenario, but there was certainly that kind of feeling that there was some pushback to trying to reorder the path or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's kind of maybe like when you approach those situations, like trying to create chaos in your life or like
Yeah. Yeah, I guess
perhaps
chaos is
I
literally
don't
in the word.
and like feeling the unexpected. It's like maybe you're just after that feeling of being alive. And so I don't actually see anything wrong with that. Maybe that was actually absolutely pertinent to your path. So
Right, I know. You can't get off the path. It's just impossible. Right?
it's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's the whole like daunting part to consider is that like it's all part of the path.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like nothing that you have to do.
What if I just slept the
Nothing.
whole time? That would be my path too.
Yeah.
Damn. So how's have you been very busy with readings lately or?
I've kind of taken like a little bit of a break, honestly. I, the cadence of them like goes with my energy. So, um, I took a little bit of time off. I had like a workshop, like a psychic poetry workshop recently that was really fun. And then, yeah, I'm like, like gearing up to start doing readings again. But I kind of have to find just like a sweet spot of just like, parenting full time through the day and then like just like having energy and like it definitely like I have to be like super structured. Like I know that like okay, when I have a reading, I have to treat myself in a certain way and make sure I'm rested so that I don't take it lightly. It's like I really want to clearly be able to be like you know as do the best work as possible and providing a channel for people to connect with their loved ones or like connect with their life or their spiritual life. So yeah, I take it super seriously and I always want to bring my best to a reading. So yeah, I just like kind of have to be strict with like, okay, you really have to like go to bed early or like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that seems like it could be an intense drain if you're not like if you don't have the space in your life for it or something.
Well, it's just like you can't make it up.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
cannot, and it's like it's also not reliable. Like or like in terms of it's you can't expect how everything to be perfect. It's like so like fragile based on like maybe like what if I get in a fight that day with somebody or like it's just like anything that's going to be in my mind like has to be like out of there. So like my thoughts have to be like pushed to the side so that somebody else can drop theirs in. Um, but so yeah, that is definitely a part of it. But yeah, I just love doing readings and it's like my passion and um, I feel honored to do them. It's like it truly gives my life meaning. So Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it certainly seems like a very rewarding profession. Yeah.
How do you feel like since we last talked to you like 4 years ago, how do you feel like your practice has changed in any important ways?
Oh yeah, I've learned so much. I've learned so much, and I think, I've been through some like pretty like intense like schools of mentorship, and like I have a lot of thoughts on that. I've seen like I've been kind of weaved through the spiritual community and like learned a lot about that. Um, I became a mother, and that has also changed my understanding of life, like just like a lot of profound changes.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I've gotten better. I think I've gotten more confident, um, and also in some ways, like, less confident because it's just like the more you learn or like the more dogma that you consume on this type of thing, it kind of like, you know, directs your attention. And I think like, so that's maybe a takeaway of like my understanding is a lot of mediums are trained under spiritualism,
Yeah.
which is a religion,
Hmm.
and I think that religion doesn't belong in consciousness to consciousness communication. Any type of like dogmatic bias can't belong in psychic work, because it's just like taints the truth a little bit, taints your interpretation a little bit, your understanding of how things should happen. So there's like a lot of structure that has to be there in order to, you have to have a container, right, for the thing to happen. But I also think that it can create pockets for reinterpretation or even fraud,
Mm.
which there has been in the community. Like, so, yeah, it's like when you have a structure that can be replicated, someone could do that without actually, having the true ability, um, coming through, so, um, definitely have like a lot of thoughts on that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like experience makes you better in anything. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but in some ways, I do think that like the best mediums are just not like, I try not to think about it honestly too much because it's like, I don't want to try to anticipate anything because that's going to get in the way. Like my expectation will get in the way, or like, maybe they won't be able to get certain pieces of information through from me because like I'm expecting it to be delivered in a certain kind of way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We talked to Shannon Taggart recently, who did this wonderful book on spiritualism and seance culture, and she worked a lot with a lot of different mediums, specifically in the community of spiritualism. And
Yeah.
we kind of talked about the element of fraud a bit, and it's really interesting. I mean, I almost like I have a profound appreciation for the historical fraudsters of, seance or communication, because to own it to that level and be in front of somebody and give them like
Totally.
this, like, I don't
Psychotic.
know, like, yeah, it's
See, that's
it's
really
really crazy. Yeah, yeah.
psychotic. Like I can't imagine. That's the thing is like I feel like it's so vulnerable to do this work because it's very taboo in society
Mm,
and there is like no real, like the structure of value only has to do with the person in the reading with you and them, their healing, or like them knowing and experiencing that feeling of love. So, um, that is the value. And so with like fraudulent mediumship, I it's so bizarre to me, but the only thing that I think you often find it behind fraud is institutions.
mm,
So an institution where a dynamic of power is created, you will always find someone that's trying to get to the top or take advantage of other people. And maybe it's subconscious, but it's like whenever, that's why it's like I always offer full refund, because if for whatever reason I go into a reading and I'm like, you know what, I can't connect right now. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. That's humiliating for me for sure. But like, who cares? Because it's nothing compared to like that person's grief. And it also just, yeah, it's not about me. So it's like, yeah, it's like, and also like the risk of being wrong. Like, there's so many things in a reading that have come through, and I'm just like, man, I really don't want to say this. Like,
Mm.
that sounds so crazy. Like, or
But you just
like,
say it. You like
and you
always go
have
with it.
to.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally, it's so, but that's the only way. That's the only way. So, um, but yeah, there's definitely been like some, like, especially in like the physical mediumship community, which is producing physical phenomena, like
Mm.
after sitting in a seance, like all these things are religious practices. That's what I recognize them as. So spiritualism has seances, which are religious practices. Um, Religion is an institution. So I think it's like maybe we should question how institutions, especially like colonial institutions, inspire fraud, because the practice can be replicated, or it has to be, like a lot of times, like they'll be like, oh, it has to be done in low light. It has to be done in this setting. And it's like, for me, I I'm just like rebellious of that. Why can't we experience phenomena in full daylight?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm interested in. I want to see things in full daylight, that nobody can refute. And also, it doesn't need to be replicated in the exact same way. And, you don't, there's no exact formula. Like, we want to create these exacting formulas to experience a miracle. And it's just, you can't. But like, if you surrender, it can happen sometimes. And so I think that that's kind of the approach that I take into readings, as a miracle happening, and I don't expect it to work like perfectly. Um, but yeah, I think there is something to be said about creating these containers that have to be followed dogmatically, and then that kind of can create like space for fraud to happen. Um,
Yeah, I think a lot of the cases were kind of specifically about what you were talking about, where some of the mediums have their career on the line, and maybe they had a day, where they had something personal going on where they couldn't produce, and yet like they felt like they had to. So that's where the element
totally.
of fraud comes in. And as we were talking to Shannon Taggart about, she was kind of saying that a lot of, very like actual mediums who have like great capabilities perform fraud sometimes just because it's not their day or something like that. It's just really interesting to consider. And
My cancellation rate, like, I cancel so many readings.
yeah, yeah,
Like, 50% of my readings I have to reschedule, and it's for that reason. It's
yeah.
just and it like obviously cannot be this like capitalist machine of like bam bam bam, I'm doing like, so I do think that you can set an intention for like, okay, like just letting you guys know, like, spirits, like, I'm doing this at this time, like, please, I like feel like I'm like on my knees, just like, please just use me, like, this is like what I'm here for, so I kind of take that approach.
Yeah, for the purposes of this show, I guess I would have to ask, have you ever felt like you've received something that was like a non-human intelligence, or something that was not coming from like a originally human source, if that's the right language?
Well, here's the thing. Well, I'll say I have animals come through all the time.
Hmm.
Like, I've had like cockatoos, those birds.
Mm.
I've seen and then person like, yeah, I had like a cockatoo, like,
That's awesome.
or just like, yeah, different types of all different types of animals, like even chickens. Like, I know that sounds so crazy, like, But animals have come through, like obviously dogs, cats, like, but like, yeah, like birds have come through. So that always, different types of animals. I never had like, you know, anything smaller than that, but I I don't know, what that says or means, but like probably just like we didn't have a strong enough connection or something in life. But in terms of like, I don't really know how to answer that question because it's like when I think about consciousness, it's like, yeah, we are jumping into a human body like before this, but like we're not in a human body before this. We're just like there. Um, so in that respect, like it could all possibly be, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Mm,
obviously like everyone that's come through has inhabited a human body,
mm.
in life. So that's what I'll say. But you know what? Like I don't know everything. Like anything is possible, truly. That's so beautiful. And I think that the thing is like I'm just like I like my interpretation of experience is going to be colored by like my aesthetic. And so my aesthetic is like romanticizing human, animal, plant life, and maybe not so much like alien life, whatever that means, but
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. Like everybody else does. It's like an aesthetic thing. Like our personalities are aesthetic, like our interests are aesthetic. And so I think that's kind of like why like my beliefs don't really go there, but I've seen people do go there. The bottom line though is like in my work, I really, really think that evidence has to be valued at the top to be validated as like true phenomena, true experiences. Um, and then the rest is like room for exploration. It's philosophy. It's like theory.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what about deity?
Like God.
Yeah, but like I mean like in terms of what you're talking about, like I could sort of see like the arising of like a deification of nature or animal or something like that.
I mean, I think that like what I've come, like my personal belief is that like we are all God.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, I think that like I've asked in like meditations, like, what is this? Like,
Hmm.
what? And the answer that I've gotten is like, you wouldn't believe it if we told you. Like, something like that, like something along those lines. And it's just like, I've just surrendered to the fact that like, I just don't know. And, but I think we can like get glimpses of it. Like, we catch a glimpse of it in the beauty of expression, like individual expression of consciousness, like
Mm.
seeing your friend's art and like, yeah, your writing and beautiful flowers, like all children, your baby.
Yeah. So what is like what would be the short answer of what is psychic poetry?
Oh, like from the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I just like designed like exercise, like intuitive exercises from my own experience to like try to like encourage that in their practice, in their writing practice. So like, you know how it's like it was about workshopping work, like your writing, your poetry work. So sometimes like just even, there's like some stars that you have to look to the periphery in order to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
Sure.
can't see
Yeah.
the star from the direct view. So that's like kind of what I try to like we're like bypassing the thinking mind. So I was like giving them like I was just like shooting weird questions at them, like or like and then like having them write it down in like quick succession, and then like um doing a lot of meditation. And then like we did one exercise that was super fun. They did like like I had them write poems and then partnered up with another writer, and they had sealed their poems in envelopes, and then they like switched, and then I just had them hold the envelope and like do a psychometry reading on the poem and just see if they could like feel what it was about,
Mm.
and just like, and everything was like, it turned out so accurately too. It was
That's
like so
awesome. Ben, we're gonna have to
yeah.
steal that. You hear that? You writing this down, Ben?
I've been doing that for years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just kidding.
No, that's
No,
a
yeah,
really cool exercise though. I love that. Yeah.
I thought that sounded really cool. If you ever do it again, I want to virtually take part.
Yeah.
Um, were the poems good?
Oh, of course, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean,
Or not always good, you know?
I might, I feel like, you're right. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. I mean, but I feel everyone yeah, everyone like there was really good.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, what does make it's like maybe like if you're faking it, that's like when it's not good.
Mm.
Like when you're faking a poem, it's not good. But if it's like just like 100% you, and it's gonna be good.
Mm.
I hope you're right. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ben's being is on the line here.
No,
Nah.
no, it's not. But yeah, I've thought about like trying to do that. Not exactly that kind of workshop, but like workshops that somehow incorporate this. Like I was telling you before we started recording about that poem that I sort of started as like a frame narrative to say that it was channeled from a future incarnation of myself.
Yeah.
And so just like the use of like these concepts as ways to open up the craft to new ways of thinking or coming at things from other directions, to think of things like, yeah, like that. And so I mean I remember seeing you post on social media about the workshop, and I thought yeah, it sounds like something I someday I'd like to either uh, do myself or take part in. So I think it's really cool that that kind of thing is out there, because the crossover between these sorts of intuitive skills and mediumistic things and poetry are so profound. Uh,
Yeah.
at least in my own work, I guess. Like whatever part of myself has whatever that faculty is definitely the same part that does the poetry thing. At least when it's good. If I'm just like fucking around, it's uh, a different part of me.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's like you said, when it's good. And I wonder if that's like just
Yeah.
when open to like kind of channeling that. Um, because I, I find like poetry and then like psychic work, I feel like I can teach the same because we're using in my psychic work, we're using my frame of awareness to then like perceive information. And that's kind of like perceive and receive information. And I always kind of say that being psychic is like answering a question that hasn't been asked yet. And I really feel like poetry and dreams are like the answers to our questions in the day.
Hmm.
Like everything, like our real, like deep, like deepest vulnerable questions, and can be like guidance or just like beautiful, like true expression of your consciousness, your individual perceptual consciousness.
Hmm.
So I do think there is some individuation in here, like with God in some ways. Like I don't understand it, like, but it's almost like there's this mathematician and philosopher, Benjamin Betts, and he like created these diagrams, these mathematical equations of expressing consciousness. Like he kind of tried to use mathematical equations to like create a diagram of consciousness. And
Hmm.
like all of the diagrams ended up looking like flowers. They all look like flowers blooming.
Yeah.
That's so
And
awesome.
I
I'm gonna
think
Yeah,
check
that,
that out.
I
yeah,
guess that makes sense.
When
Yeah.
was he from?
he was like, I think 1900. I I don't like contain information very well, like in terms of that, but I think it
Yeah,
was 19.
sounds like something like romantic era or something.
Yeah.
Is that
That's
romantic
cool.
or
Yeah.
Victorian? I don't know.
That's
No, 19, not,
Victorian.
sorry, 19th century.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah,
Yeah, so even earlier.
Mm.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, the poetry thing is it's hard to know. I mean, it's funny that you put it with dreams because I feel like they're similarly uh maligned in culture in the same way kind of as like being frivolous,
Mhm.
but when really they're like the engines of of life in
Yeah.
some ways.
Yeah.
Like, well, poetry, I'm using maybe like a very broad term, like, which is I feel how you're using it as well. Like, not just the craft of it, which is a very specific art that is like it requires specific skills, whatever. But poetry is like a more general term of like a use of language and communication that has to do with transmitting something other than what is being said, kind of like or that impulse, something like that is sort of, and that's so much like dreams because it's they're like these images and narratives that carry emotional uh packages that like can't be felt by the waking mind in my experience. They're like these discrete like events that are given to you that
Yeah.
like yeah that are more like I don't yeah it's hard to explain, but my experience with dreams is so much about more than like the things happening in the dream or the information being imparted or whatever. It's like this emotion that the dream conveys, which is totally singular, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think it's on purpose. Like it's by design, for our dreams to be symbols that kind of scream at us because we're trying to bypass our thinking mind. So we're trying to
Yeah.
become alert or alert ourselves to something in our day that needs attention. And then it's up to us to take that symbol for what we know its meaning to be in our own personal life.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Dreams. It is funny though.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, or like society's actively trying to like get people to work while they're sleeping. So
right.
it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like an uh, intentional motive to get people to like discount dreaming or something.
Oh yeah, I think that yeah. No, I mean I think it's like our guidance. It's like our inner guidance like coming through. That's what our dreams are.
Mm.
And yeah, in the same, it's just like, you know, if you want to be your own psychic, like interpret your own dreams. So but it's not easy. Like it's not easy to do. It's like, it takes like a lot of patience, I think, to be like, okay, the symbol, like breaking down symbols
Yeah.
and then locating the meaning that it is for you individually. And then also like overarchingly, like in cultural understanding. So it's kind of like balancing the two. But yeah, it's something I love it.
So do you get like burned out on other kind of like subjects in the nexus of like occult paranormal stuff because like you're actively working in the field? Like I'm curious what kind of stuff you're reading for your own enjoyment.
Oh no, like yeah, everything I read is just like something to do with God or
Yeah, yeah.
like yeah, no, I don't get burnt out at all. It's like the only thing that I think about. But I'm reading like yeah, I try to find books like intuitively. Sometimes like I'll press myself to read something I can't understand and then like I read 20 pages, but um I really like Jacob Boehm. He's
Mm.
like this
Mm-hmm.
stick. Um,
He's like the early theosophical, right?
yeah.
Like pre-theosophical.
Is it?
Yeah, but big for them,
Right,
I
right,
think.
right. Yeah.
The way that he like
I'm looking at 6 theosophical points on my shelf over there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he died in 1624.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's big. That is a lot before then. Was it
yeah, I say like I don't even
repackaged or?
know any like actual information about like the biographical, but like I just really like how he writes, like
He's amazing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, he's incredible.
He describes states of meditation in like a way that I really relate to, and then like I read a lot of like near-death experience books, like a lot of like doctors out of UVA
Mm.
have written a lot of material, and like obviously like poetry and stuff, and just like mediumship books. Like I'm not like, yeah, I'll read anything that has to do with it. I'm not picky.
Yeah. Was Raymond Moody like where was he from? Was that UVA or was he based out of California? I'm kind of forgetting now. And
I can't remember either, but I know that I feel like he did at some point get roped into the UVA. I don't know, but I've read a lot of his stuff too.
yeah, it's weird because there's a whole thing coming out of there, and also the hemisync stuff is Ben. That's based out of like Virginia, right? The Gateway,
Is it?
isn't that center in Virginia or something?
You might be right.
Yeah,
There's
that's
a
kind
lot
of
of stuff
strange.
there.
Yeah,
It's like the Monroe Institute is here.
yeah, that's what
Yeah,
that's what it
that's
is.
it.
The
Yeah.
Monroe Institute, right? Where is that
Yeah.
based out of?
I think it's in Charlottesville.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, that sounds right for sure. That's crazy.
I would have figured they'd be in California. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of stuff down there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's cool for sure. I'd love to go there one day.
Probably because the government funding they were getting and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Possibly there could be that proximity for that reason. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy though. The Monroe Institute, they did a lot with like OBE, but then life after death stuff related, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think they focus a lot on like, yeah, like astral projection, like out
Mm.
of body experience and stuff like that for sure. Yeah. Which like
When I was
honestly,
listening to it, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh no, no, you go.
I listened to the HemiSync like Gateway tapes, and that was what happened during the first one was this crazy out of body projection thing.
Whoa, yeah,
That's
that
it.
is
Yeah. Have
no,
you,
yeah. I mean, it's like anything can happen when you put yourself in that like state.
True. Have you ever
Um,
been to the Monroe Institute?
no, but yeah, that's definitely not like somewhere I'd love to go
Yeah.
and check out. But I'm always like finding it's like there's just like I have this flaw of like wanting to rebel against any institution, and like I'm really trying to heal that part of myself, like because like of
yeah.
course there's gonna be um weird things anywhere. So like I'm just like hyper on guard of any institution that like has any ranking system, which I don't know, but no, I think that absolutely looks like a fascinating place to go, and honestly probably really helps a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the idea of like technology, specifically sound inducing states, astral states and stuff like that is really interesting. And obviously that was the gateway experience, which is like a big conspiracy kind of has all that conspiratorial intrigue to it because some general from the army was commissioned to write this like dossier about it, but then he like kind of injected all of his own weird pre-existing interests and stuff, so it's just this weird artifact. Yeah.
Hey, anyone can be psychic. That's the thing. It's like it doesn't discriminate, like you don't have to be a good person, a spiritual person, a smart person. Like, this is something that everyone's capable of doing. And yeah, I try to be like a nice person, but
That's awesome. We should all take your advice and try it out a little bit, I think, or open up at least, right?
Especially you.
Why?
You should have tried out a lot, Dave.
Wow.
Being a nice person.
Oh my God, he's coming for me
I'm just,
on
I'm
air.
just kidding. No, you're a very nice person.
Wow, he's walking it back now. Um, so
That was a
what's next on the what's next on your calendar? Do you have more workshops coming up?
I nothing like planned into the future yet. I haven't even opened my calendar like for July. I'm still kind of catching up. I have a couple readings to finish out this month with, and then like I do have like some dream interpretation containers that I'm opening up like in the fall, which would be like basically like one-on-one guidance to interpreting your dreams with like kind of like the psychic lens. So I will like open that up for the fall. But yeah, I'm still kind of just I really like use my energy as like a compass for what I can do, and so yeah, I'm taking it kind of slow.
Yeah.
Uh,
hmm.
That sounds awesome though. I've been keeping like a dream journal for like 3 years, and it's now just kind of this like daunting catalog of information that I have to figure out how to like work with at some point. I keep saying that I will, but now I'm just still writing down the dreams in there.
do you have like memories of dreams as a child?
Um, only probably a few that stand out, like nightmares and stuff. But I think really the act of remembering dreams was kind of sparked by starting to keep a dream journal, really, and like in the moment writing down the dream, even though it's difficult because you want to immediately go back to sleep, but like taking the time to just like jot it down.
Yeah. I feel like it can be like a case for just like different states of consciousness, not just in like this like waking state, because yeah, it's like you can have these memories of like from childhood of something
Yeah.
that's just happening like in your subconscious mind while you're asleep. I think that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, I remember actually now that you're saying that the one that stands out I thought was real for a long time, and maybe it was, but I saw Santa Claus in downstairs in my house, like putting Christmas presents under the tree, and I thought it was like a real thing that happened when I was a kid, because the dream was like that potent, you know?
Sounds
Wow.
real.
Yeah. So I think
Maybe it was.
I think it was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you saw him.
That's one institution that ain't going away, Ben. Santa Claus is here to stay.
Really, I love institutions. I'm not the one.
Yeah, it was potent. I could still see it though. Like
Yeah.
I almost feel like some of like the Coca-Cola ads got injected a little bit too though, you know.
Yeah. Television is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Too powerful.
Right. Right.
Or whatever they call it these days. Do people still watch TV? Like young people?
I watch TV. I was
I don't-
watching Naked and Afraid XL last night. It's pretty cool.
What do you mean XL? Is it really big people?
Yeah, it's giants. No, they're just like they're out there for longer, so it's extra large.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That's a dumb name.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree with you there, but it's a fascinating program actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's-
It's definitely like a weird cosplay.
Yeah. It's
Just
good
like-
like mind sap entertainment for sure.
Yeah.
What have you been watching?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
yeah. What? I don't know.
Oh man. Okay, honestly, like I do watch like medium shows. I feel like it like helps me build like I'll sometimes I will totally like watch Teresa Capu like Long Island Medium
The
because
Long
she
Island medium.
listen, people she's like a real medium.
Yeah, yeah.
I believe it.
And it's like helpful to watch readings. So like yeah, I'll just like zone out and like watch that. There was like a time where I was like thinking that I needed to expand like my knowledge of um illnesses, like medical illnesses. So I was like so that could come through in readings and that I was like trying to watch House and that like didn't work. And then because it was just like yeah, there's like but right now yeah, I will and then like I'm watching like this like weird therapy drama that my friend I'm like sucked in, but yeah, just like a weird therapy in treatment, like this HBO show. It's just literally like
The
it's
Sopranos.
yeah, exactly.
Huh.
That's exactly. It's
Isn't that what that
basically
is?
without
Yeah.
American and Italian Americans, yeah.
That's cool though that you watch like medium TV shows and stuff. I could see that as being helpful
Yeah,
to
that
kind of
rules.
navigate the, I don't know, the relationship or something.
I feel like people can like hate on her a little bit just because she's like also like a TV personality, but like no, she's
Yeah.
like for sure she's legit.
Mm.
Huh.
Um,
That must be so much pressure to do it on TV.
Right. Yeah, for real.
I think so, but like I think like the state that you're in to do readings, you're not really you just let it take over. So I think I mean I could totally see being nervous, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like what if, something doesn't come through or like, but I think even in those circumstances, like the opportunity for the spirit to come through they're gonna take advantage of that. Even if it's filmed or not, it's like
Hmm.
that's connecting people together. So it's
Think
like
the spirits know if it's being filmed or not? Like, or in general, do they know, do they have like an awareness of the physical situation that they're entering?
I mean, I'm sure they do. Like, but I mean, the shorter answer is like, yeah, I'm sure.
Hmm.
But like,
Cool.
long answer is like, I have no idea what like experiential reality is like after you die.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Damn. Yeah, do you feel like these are coming from like things that have a will or like a current experience? Or is it does it feel like that?
for sure, yeah. I mean, it's like when people come through, they're talking about things that their loved ones are experiencing in life. A lot of times that no one else would know. Like I had a reading where a father was coming through and he was just like, say Popeye the Sailor Man. Or like I heard Popeye the Sailor Man. I was like, okay. I was just like, oh, yeah, Popeye. I actually have a video of it on my Instagram, so you can watch the reading. But so I was like, does Popeye the Sailor Man mean anything to you? And she was just like, well, I was like alone in my room watching that, yes, like last night. Like she was watching that movie. I mean, I don't know who watches that movie. That's such a random thing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, the
along
Robin
with,
Williams one, right?
I believe that was the one. Yeah.
That is a
So
very random movie to be
not
watching.
something that like I jump to. So it's like, they're aware. So her father must have been, with her,
Mm.
at that moment and just witnessing her experience. No one was home. That's just something that there's no way I could ever know, and there's no way that I could get that information artificially.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
I don't, there's just absolutely no possible way. And then, so it's like, yeah, I think consciousness is intelligent, like after you die. So, of course, like, and I think that they're also aware of stuff that, like, we're just like not, you know, they've talked about like things that could happen in the future or like things to look out for. Like, I had a reading where an uncle came through and was like, showed me like a bird swooping down over this person's car, and that hadn't happened yet. So I was like, okay, look out for this happening. That's, your uncle just like being present with you. And she texted me, and that happened like maybe like a month or two later. But so yeah, I think there's definitely intelligence, and intelligence beyond what we have, just like in our waking relative life. Uh, and then some people will say there's like levels to this and like all that. And it's just I don't know, I could never know. I don't know if there's a ladder, like a spiritual ladder that we climb, or like to enlightenment. But
Hope not.
I always say it's like the ladder's diagonal, like it's like going this way,
Yeah.
But because like there's beauty in like the shadow. So, maybe the shadow is like the part that's higher. I don't know, but uh it's interesting to think about, and like it inspires me to think about.
Yeah. And we're getting long here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm curious, have you ever read or heard about Edgar Cayce, and what maybe your thoughts might be on like that sort of, because his whole career really, I mean, he's kind of famous in the Ancient Aliens crowd and that stuff for the Atlantis stuff, but really most of his readings, thousands, were diagnostic for health purposes and stuff like that.
Totally. He was like such a profound medical medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a legitimate medium. I think that like his work, especially his dream work, I really align with, and kind of like cross over a lot with the way that we, um, work with dreams is similar. And the design, like also has this belief that like our dreams are our guidance to the answers we're searching for in the daytime. So, I think to have just like a very respectable medium as far as like the like channeled stuff, like the Atlantis, I can't really, I'm not super familiar with, like, I can't just speak to 100%, but like,
Yeah, that stuff's a really small portion of his writings, from what I understand.
yeah. And it's like, maybe that is true, I don't know, but aesthetically, it's not something that I'm like compelled by. So that is like, why I don't run to those types of things. Like, I'm more aesthetically compelled by like poetic writings about God, or like people being miserable like in life, and just like begging God to give them answers, and like throwing spiritual tantrums and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Elliott Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and Casey's archive is also in Virginia, in Newport News. What's going on? You got like a psychic hub in Virginia now.
Yeah, it really seems that way. I need to like visit that museum too. But yeah, it seems pretty cool. Like Edgar Cayce is cool. I think that he helped a lot of people. I think he was super generous.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah. And then like they built this institution around it, and it's just like, it's kind of the same thing where it's just like once you start building like in like a institution around something, it can get a little bit weird and crazy, but it's like that's where your discernment comes in. And it's just like I just tell, if you're like discerning in your spiritual journey, I tell people like you will feel it in your body. Any like spark of like that doesn't seem right, or like I don't 100% trust that, like anything like that is like your intuition speaking up. And it's just like usually never wrong to listen to your body's response. Like you'll feel it, like if you don't want to do something, somebody texts you like, oh, do you want to go like do this, and your body's saying no, so just don't, or like the reverse, you like get excited like, oh yeah, I want to do something. Like it's kind of like that with discerning any kind of spiritual institution. It's like you'll know.
Amazing. Well, thanks again for coming on and taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it. What is your website where people could check out what you've got coming up? And are you openly booking readings at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I open them like on a monthly basis. So just like check in kind of like around the end of each month, and then I'll have like some limited spaces available for psychic or mediumship readings. And then I'll post my workshops like on my Instagram and on my website. But yeah, my website's just evanaroman.com, and my Instagram is Evana Roman Medium. So you can watch some videos of just like what a reading is like there. I like to kind of demystify it because I feel like it can be scary to go into that kind of a space like without knowing what to expect. So yeah, but yeah, I love like catching up with you guys, and like just talking to you is really fun.
Yeah, it was
that's
amazing. I knew it was going to go in a lot of interesting directions, and it's fun to kind of talk about what hauntings might be, and I don't know, America's got so much of a haunted history to it. It's kind of fun to unpack that a little bit sometimes.
I
The
also
whole
feel like
conversation was. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm like you guys have like built such a incredible like prolific um thing with this podcast. Like it's so amazing, and I just think yeah, I'm so honored to be in the space with you guys, and just like as artists too. I really respect you.
Oh, thank you. We
Oh,
appreciate that. Some of
thanks.
our listeners are
Yeah.
like, they could be a little bit more prolific probably, but
Uh,
we try and keep it pretty regular. We make it count. We do some lengthier episodes when we put them out and stuff, but we do work on our own schedule a little bit as well.
yeah.
You
I mean,
got it. Your heart's got to
people
be
like
in it,
that.
you know? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you gotta follow that.
yeah.
I was gonna say, this whole conversation has made me kind of like thoughtful. I'm feeling really thoughtful right now, and
Nice.
yeah, I. It's nice to talk with someone who has a sort of uh, more or less coherent approach to something that is so often like just picking flying stuff out of the air half the time. It feels like uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely my intention. So
yeah,
I
no,
really
it's good.
appreciate.
Yeah, filtering
Yeah.
the noise. All right. Well, Ben, do you want to ask what time is again or something?
Yeah.
What is time?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
It's the only question.
That's for the next episode. We'll get you back next week and we'll just talk about time.
Yeah,
Let's get again. It's like, did I already ask this?
Yeah. It's on the last episode too.
Um,
If we listen back, you're probably like, what is time?
But yeah, 2020. That's crazy, or whenever it was.
Yeah.
yeah.
Time flies.
Time flies. Well,
Life.
thanks again. And thanks as always for listening. We'll be back soon.
Thank you.